Captain Morrison, we need you up front. Now. Jessica's panicked voice over the intercom made 147 passengers look up from their phones. Something was wrong in first class. Very wrong. Marcus Williams hadn't moved from seat 2A in 12 minutes. Not when Jessica demanded his real ticket. Not when she called him a fraud. Not when other passengers started filming his removal. He just sat there, checking his Patek Philippe watch. Waiting. "Sir, you're holding up this entire flight," Jessica said, her voice shaking now. "The captain is coming." Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that made Jessica's blood run cold. "I know." His phone buzzed. A text from someone called Legal Team. "Everything ready, sir. Just give us the word." The stories we tell ourselves about strangers. The real-life stories that shatter assumptions. These touching stories remind us that Black stories often hide the most shocking truths. Life stories that change everything. Have you ever misjudged someone so completely that it destroyed your entire world? Captain Derek Morrison appeared like a storm cloud, his gold stripes catching the cabin light. 23 years of flying had taught him one truth: problem passengers needed immediate, decisive action. "Jessica, what's happening here?" His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "This man," Jessica pointed at Marcus, "has been sitting in first class for 20 minutes. He won't show proper ID. He's been aggressive." Morrison studied Marcus. Expensive suit, calm posture, hands folded. Nothing screamed threat. But Jessica's voice was shaking, and she'd never lied to him before. "Sir, I'm Captain Morrison. I understand there's been some confusion about your seat assignment." Marcus lifted his boarding pass without a word. Southwest Airlines, Flight 2847, Seat 2A. Morrison examined it closely. Everything looked legitimate. Everything looked legit. "This appears to be in order," Morrison said slowly. "It's fake," Jessica whispered, but her voice carried through the cabin. "Captain, look at him. Really look. Does he belong in first class?" Emma Morgan's live stream viewer count hit 8,000. Comments exploded. Did she just say that? This is insane. Southwest about to get sued. Morrison felt the weight of 147 passengers watching him. The businessman in 1C tapped his watch impatiently. The couple in 2C whispered behind their hands. A teenager in 4A held up her phone, recording everything. "Ma'am, I need you to explain what you mean by that," Morrison said carefully. "You know what I mean," Jessica's voice cracked. "People like him don't usually fly first class. He probably bought this ticket from some sketchy website." "People like me?" Marcus spoke for the first time since Morrison arrived. His voice was quiet, controlled. "Dangerous." "Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about," Jessica snapped. "I see hundreds of passengers every day. I know who belongs where." Emma's phone was shaking in her hands. Her live stream now had 15,000 viewers. Someone had started Southwest Discrimination hashtag. Local news stations were messaging her frantically. "Gate announces final boarding in 10 minutes. The intercom crackled. "Sir," Morrison said, "I'm going to need additional identification. Driver's license, credit card, something to verify this ticket." Marcus reached into his jacket. Morrison tensed. You never knew with problem passengers. But Marcus only pulled out a wallet. Expensive leather, European-made. Inside, a black American Express Centurion card, the kind Morrison had only seen in magazines. The kind that required a $10,000 0 cents annual fee just to own. Morrison's confidence wavered. This is a very exclusive card." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "It is. But that doesn't explain how you got first class," Jessica interjected. "Those seats cost $800 0 cents. You probably used miles or some upgrade trick." "I paid full price," Marcus replied. "This morning, at 6:43 a.m. Morrison felt something cold settle in his stomach. The specificity was unsettling. Most passengers couldn't remember exactly when they'd booked their flights. 9 minutes to departure. "Captain," Jessica said, "other passengers are complaining. They paid good money for a comfortable flight. This situation is making everyone uncomfortable." She was right. The businessman in 1C was openly staring now. The woman in 3D had her phone out, clearly recording. The tension in the cabin was palpable. "Sir," Morrison said, "I'm going to ask you to deplane voluntarily. We can sort this out at the gate with customer service." No, the word cut through the cabin like a blade. Morrison had heard that tone before, from passengers who ended up in handcuffs. "I beg your pardon?" "I said no, Captain Morrison. I'm not deplaning. I'm not moving. I'm staying in my assigned seat until this aircraft reaches Phoenix." Jessica's face went red. "That's it. I'm calling security. You're trespassing." 8 minutes to departure. "Jessica, make the call," Morrison said. He'd had enough. This passenger was clearly unstable, possibly dangerous. Marcus checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than Morrison's annual salary. "Captain, before you do that, I have a question. Are you familiar with Federal Aviation Regulation 91.11? Morrison paused. That was specific. Very specific. It deals with crew authority during flight operations. The interstate violations in interstate commerce? Sir, are you threatening legal action? I'm asking if you understand the legal framework you're currently operating under. Emma's live stream exploded past 30,000 viewers. The comments were a blur of outrage. This is 2024 and we're still doing this? Get this racist crew fired. I'm recording this for the news. 7 minutes to departure. Morrison's radio crackled. Captain Morrison, this is ground security. We're boarding for a passenger removal. Copy that, Morrison replied, but something in Marcus's expression made him hesitate. Captain, Marcus said softly, I think you should know something before those officers arrive. What? This conversation is being recorded by at least 12 devices. Your crew member has made several statements that could be construed as discriminatory under federal law. And in about 30 seconds, you're going to receive a phone call that will change everything. Morrison felt his mouth go dry. What kind of call? Marcus smiled, not angry, not smug, just knowing. The kind that ends careers, Captain. The kind that makes headlines. The kind that changes companies forever. As if on cue, Morrison's phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Southwest Operations Center. Urgent. Marcus leaned back in his seat. You might want to answer that. Morrison's phone buzzed against his ear. Captain Morrison, this is Southwest Operations. We're monitoring social media. Your flight has 42,000 live viewers. Handle this quietly and quickly. 42,000 people watching his every move. Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as 2 airport security officers boarded Janet Kim and Mike Rodriguez, both carrying restraints. What's the situation? Kim asked, surveying the cabin. Jessica pointed at Marcus with a shaking finger. This passenger has been disruptive for 30 minutes. He's threatening crew members and refusing to move to economy where he belongs. Marcus remained perfectly still, hands folded in his lap. The only movement was his eyes, tracking every person, every camera, every witness. Sir, Kim addressed Marcus, we need you to come with us voluntarily. I'm in my assigned seat with a valid boarding pass, Marcus replied. I'm not going anywhere. Rodriguez stepped closer, hand moving to his zip ties. Sir, you're interfering with aircraft operations. Federal offense. Last warning. 6 minutes to departure, the gate agent announced over the intercom. Emma's live stream chat exploded. This is insane. Sue them all. Call every news station. Make this viral. The businessman in 1C finally lost his patience. Captain, I paid premium prices to avoid exactly this kind of situation. I have a connecting flight in Phoenix. Other first-class passengers murmured agreement. The woman in 2D held her phone higher, making sure she captured every angle. A teenager in 4A live-streamed to her TikTok followers. "Sir," Kim said to Marcus, "this is your final opportunity to comply voluntarily." Marcus looked at his expensive watch, a gesture that everyone now interpreted as defiance. "Officers, before you proceed, I have one question." "We're not here for questions," Rodriguez snapped. "Are you familiar with the legal ramifications of unlawful detention?" Kim hesitated. That was lawyer language, specific, technical lawyer language. "You're trespassing," Morrison interjected. "Southwest Airlines has the absolute right to remove any passenger for any reason." "Actually," Marcus said, reaching slowly for his briefcase, "let me clarify something about those rights. These rights—" Rodriguez tensed. "No sudden movements. I'm retrieving documentation that you requested," Marcus said calmly. 5 minutes to departure." Morrison's radio crackled. "Captain Morrison, operations. CNN is calling our media line. Fox News is requesting comment. We need immediate resolution." National news coverage. Morrison felt his career prospects crumbling in real time. But Jessica had never been wrong about problem passengers before. Never. "What documentation?" Kim asked suspiciously. "The kind that explains why forcibly removing me would end all of your careers," Marcus replied. Jessica's voice rose to near hysteria. "He's been threatening us the entire time. He won't show proper ID. Look at him. Does he look like he belongs in first class?" "Ma'am," Kim said carefully, "what specific threats did he make?" "Said there would be consequences. He keeps timing everything on his watch. He's planning something." Emma's viewer count hit 55,000. Major news outlets were sliding into her DMs. Her phone buzzed constantly with interview requests. 4 minutes to departure. Morrison made his decision. "Officers, remove him. 147 passengers can't be held hostage by one individual." Rodriguez stepped forward, restraints ready. "Sir, stand up slowly and place your hands behind your back." Marcus didn't move. Instead, he asked, "Captain Morrison, how long have you been flying for Southwest?" 23 years. Morrison answered automatically, then caught himself. "That's irrelevant. Officer Rodriguez, how long have you worked airport security?" 8 years. "Why does that matter?" "Because in 30 seconds, you'll both need to explain to your supervisors why you detained the wrong person." Morrison's radio erupted with static. "Captain Morrison, emergency. We have developing situation. Stand by for executive-level instructions. Do not proceed with passenger removal until further notice." Executive level. That meant corporate headquarters. That meant people Morrison had never met, but who controlled his entire career. "Sir," Rodriguez said, "you're under arrest for—" 3 minutes to departure. Marcus finally stood. The entire cabin held its breath. Every phone focused on him. "Officers," he said quietly, 20 years from now, you'll train new personnel about this moment, about the importance of asking the right questions before taking action." He reached into his briefcase with deliberate slowness. This time, no one stopped him. Marcus withdrew a leather document folder, expensive, embossed with a logo most people wouldn't recognize. He opened it carefully. "Before you arrest me," he said, "perhaps you should see my identification." Kim extended her hand reluctantly. Marcus handed her a business card. Kim read it. Her face went chalk white. She showed Rodriguez, whose eyes widened in shock. "What does it say?" Morrison demanded, his voice cracking. Kim's whisper was barely audible. "Marcus Williams, board member, Southwest Airlines." Board member. Not CEO. Board member. High enough to destroy careers, but not so high that it seemed impossible. Jessica's face crumpled. That can't be real. Board members don't fly commercial." 2 minutes to departure. Morrison's radio crackled with a different voice. Older, more authoritative. "Captain Morrison, this is Senior Vice President Davidson. We are aware of the situation on Flight 2847. Take no further action against the passenger in Seat 2A. Corporate is handling this directly. Senior Vice President. Morrison had never spoken to anyone that high in the company hierarchy. Marcus sat back down, smoothing his suit jacket. Captain Morrison, I believe you had some concerns about my documentation? Morrison felt 23 years of flying evaporating before his eyes. Sir, the crew had no way of knowing. That's precisely the point, Marcus said softly. You assumed. Your crew assumed. And now 60,000 people have watched those assumptions play out in real time. Emma's live stream had indeed reached 60,000 viewers. The comments were a blur of shock and vindication. Board member? They're so fired. Justice is served. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Screenshot everything. Rodriguez backed away slowly, his restraints forgotten. Kim stared at the business card like it contained nuclear codes. Jessica began hyperventilating. The weight of her words, recorded, live-streamed, witnessed by thousands, crashed down on her. It was 1 minute to departure. But nobody was thinking about departure anymore. The entire cabin was focused on the quiet man in Seat 2A, who had just revealed himself to be one of the most powerful people in the company. Marcus checked his watch one final time. I believe, he said, we have some important matters to discuss. Taylor demanded. The implications hung in the recycled air like a storm cloud, waiting to break. Silence crashed over the cabin like a physical force. Marcus Williams, board member, sat in Seat 2, while 60,000 people watched the crew's world collapse in real time. Morrison stared at the business card in Kim's trembling hands. Board member. The words didn't compute. Board members didn't fly commercial. They had private jets, executive assistants, security details. Sir, Morrison whispered, if you're on the board, why didn't you identify yourself immediately? Marcus looked up, and for the first time something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, something deeper. Captain, why should I have to prove who I am to sit in a seat I paid for? The question hit like a sledgehammer. Morrison realized he'd never asked that of a white passenger. Ever. We follow protocol. Whose protocol says black men in expensive suits are suspicious? The word hung in the air. Black. He'd said it. The thing everyone was thinking, but no one would voice. Jessica's sobbing intensified. She understood now. This wasn't just a customer service failure. This was a civil rights incident. Recorded, live-streamed, permanent. Emma's chat exploded. He said it, calling out the racism. This is history. 90K viewers, holy shit. Marcus reached for his tablet again, but this time his hands weren't quite steady. The calm facade was cracking. Officer Rodriguez, Marcus said, in your 8 years of security work, how many white passengers have you restrained for sitting quietly in first class? Sir, that's not... How many? None. How many black passengers? Rodriguez couldn't answer. The mathematics of bias were undeniable. Marcus tapped his tablet. A new screen appeared. Not an organizational chart, but a video call. Live. The Southwest Airlines boardroom appeared, with 6 executives staring directly into the camera. Marcus? A woman's voice from the tablet. We're watching the live stream. Are you all right? The crew's faces went ashen. This wasn't just any board member. This was someone the other executives called by his first name. Someone they were worried about. I'm fine, Patricia, Marcus replied. Though I think Captain Morrison and his crew have some explaining to do. Morrison realized with horror that the entire Southwest Airlines executive team was watching this unfold, live, in real time. Captain Morrison, the woman on the screen said, this is Patricia Watkins, Senior Vice President of Operations. Would you care to explain why our chairman is being threatened with arrest on his own airline? Chairman, not board member, chairman of the board. Morrison felt his knees buckle. Jessica collapsed into a passenger seat, hyperventilating. Rodriguez actually dropped his restraints, the plastic clattering on the cabin floor. "Ma'am," Morrison stammered. "We had no identification. The crew reported." The crew reported what, exactly? Another voice from the tablet, older, male, authoritative. "This is CO Jordan. I want a precise explanation of why my chairman was treated like a criminal." Emma's viewer count hit 100,000. Her phone was burning hot. News alerts were popping up on social media faster than she could read them. Marcus turned the tablet toward Jessica. "Ms. Martinez, would you like to explain to CEO Jordan what you told me about people like me?" Jessica couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight of having the entire executive team watch her discrimination in real time was crushing her. "Sir," Kim found her voice. "We were responding to crew reports of a disruptive passenger." "Officer Kim," the CO's voice cut through the cabin. "We have footage from multiple angles. Mr. Williams was sitting quietly, reading documents. What exactly was disruptive about his behavior?" The flight attendant said. "The flight attendant assumed," Marcus interrupted, and now his voice carried an edge. "She assumed I didn't belong. She assumed my ticket was fake. She assumed I was aggressive. Every assumption based on one thing." He paused, letting the weight of that truth settle. "My appearance?" The cabin was dead silent except for Jessica's ragged breathing. Marcus tapped the tablet again. A different screen appeared, internal Southwest communications, real-time messages between executives. Legal department mobilizing. PR crisis team activated. Stock price monitoring initiated. Discrimination, lawsuit potential. "Hi. Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus addressed the cabin. "What you're witnessing is how quickly assumptions become lawsuits, how bias becomes headlines, how prejudice becomes stock price drops." Morrison's radio crackled. "Captain Morrison, this is Tower Control. We have 17 news vans at Phoenix Sky Harbor. The FAA is requesting incident reports. Complete your departure immediately." 17 news vans. This was no longer an airline incident. It was a national story. "Captain," CO Jordan's voice from the tablet, "you will complete this flight. Mr. Williams will remain in his seat, the seat he paid for. Upon arrival, you will report directly to corporate headquarters." "Yes, sir." "Mrs. Martinez, you will say nothing further to passengers or crew. HR will meet you at the gate." Jessica nodded mutely, tears streaming down her face. "Officers," the CO continued, "your departments will receive formal complaints. I suggest you contact your supervisors immediately." Marcus closed the tablet, cutting the connection. The executives were gone, but their presence lingered like smoke. "Now," Marcus said, standing slowly, "let me show you something else." He opened his briefcase wider. Inside, legal documents marked class action lawsuit template, airline discrimination, financial reports showing revenue impact of discrimination incidents, and training materials titled Unconscious Bias in Customer Service. "I didn't board this flight by accident," Marcus said quietly. "Southwest Airlines has received 47 discrimination complaints this quarter. 47. This flight was a test." The words hit like electricity. This was planned, orchestrated, a setup. You planned this?" Morrison asked, his voice barely audible. "I planned to fly first class on my own airline. Your crew planned the discrimination." Thumping me hard. Emma's live stream reached 110,000 viewers. Comments flooded faster than the platform could process. It was a test. Chairman Jing his own airline? "This is genius. They fell for it completely." Marcus pulled out his phone. On the screen, a draft press release titled, Southwest Airlines announces comprehensive anti-discrimination initiative following chairman's personal experience with bias. This press release will go out in 30 minutes, he said. It announces mandatory bias training for all employees, third-party audits of customer service interactions, and a $10 million zero-cents fund for discrimination prevention programs. He looked directly at Jessica. Ms. Martinez, your assumptions just cost this company $10 million. Jessica's sobbing turned to hyperventilation. A passenger offered her an oxygen mask. But, Marcus continued, they also just bought us the opportunity to become the first airline in America with a zero-tolerance discrimination policy backed by real consequences. Morrison found his voice. Sir, what happens to us? Marcus studied him for a long moment. That depends, Captain, on whether you learn from this or repeat it. He sat back down, opened his laptop, and began typing. I'm documenting everything that happened here today. Every word, every assumption, every moment of bias. It will become required training material for every Southwest employee. The plane began to move, finally departing, 37 minutes late. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced to the cabin, welcome to the flight that changes everything. As Phoenix approached, Marcus made one final call. Legal? It's Marcus. Execute the discrimination protocol, full implementation, and get me a meeting with the NAACP, ACLU, and Department of Transportation. We're going to fix this industry. The test was over. The real work was about to begin. The cabin air felt electric as Flight 2847 cruised toward Phoenix. Marcus Williams closed his laptop with a decisive snap, the sound cutting through the nervous whispers of 147 passengers. Mrs. Martinez, his voice carried absolute authority, sit down. We're going to have a conversation. Jessica stumbled to seat 2B, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Every phone in first class focused on her face, pale, streaked with tears, destroyed. Look at me, Marcus commanded. Jessica forced herself to meet his eyes. What she saw there wasn't anger. It was something worse. Disappointment, so profound, it felt like a physical blow. 8 years with this company, Marcus said quietly. 15 discrimination training sessions, dozens of diversity workshops. And 30 minutes ago, you looked at a black man in a $3,000 zero-cent suit and decided he was a criminal. Sir, I'm not finished. The words cut like ice. Do you know what Southwest Airlines stock price was when we took off? Jessica shook her head. $34.67 per share. Do you know what it will be when we land? Marcus opened his phone, showing a real-time stock ticker. Southwest Airlines, $32.15. Down 7.3%. Your assumptions just cost our shareholders $847 million, 0 cents in market value. Emma's live stream exploded with comments. Stock price crashing live. She cost them almost $1 billion. This is insane. Captain Morrison, Marcus called out. Join us. Morrison emerged from the cockpit, his pilot's uniform wrinkled, his face gray. 23 years of flying, and it would all end here. Captain, how many black passengers have you personally removed from first class? Morrison's mouth went dry. Sir, I don't keep statistics on... I do. Marcus pulled up a document on his tablet. Southwest Internal Audit, Flight Operations Division. In the past 2 years, Captain Derek Morrison has authorized the removal of 17 passengers from premium cabins. 15 were people of color. 2 were white. The numbers hung in the air like an indictment. Morrison felt his legs go weak. Coincidence, Captain. I never realized. You never realized because you never questioned. Ms. Martinez tells you a black passenger is disruptive, and you don't ask for specifics. She tells you someone doesn't belong, and you don't ask why. You just act. Marcus stood up, commanding the attention of the entire cabin. His voice carried to the back rows, where passengers craned their necks to see the confrontation. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing is institutional racism in action. Not cross-burning, hood-wearing racism. The polite kind. The kind that hides behind policy and protocol. Jessica's sobbing intensified. She understood now. This wasn't just about her job. This was about everything she'd been taught, everything she'd accepted as normal. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and smiled grimly. Ms. Martinez, do you know who that was? Jessica shook her head. Gloria Allred's law office. They want to discuss a class action lawsuit representing every black passenger who's been discriminated against by Southwest Airlines in the past 5 years. The color drained from Jessica's face. How many passengers is that? Based on our internal complaints, approximately 2,300 incidents. Average settlement value in discrimination cases, $400,000, 0 cents per plaintiff. Emma did quick math on her live stream. That's almost $1 billion in potential lawsuits. Marcus nodded. Correct. Ms. Martinez, your 30 minutes of bias just exposed Southwest Airlines to the largest discrimination lawsuit in aviation history. Morrison found his voice. Sir, what can we do? We? Marcus's laugh was bitter. Captain, there is no we. You made your choice when you decided I was guilty. Before asking what I'd done wrong, please, sir, I have a family, a mortgage. I'll lose everything. So do the 2,300 black passengers you and your colleagues have humiliated over the past 5 years. Did you consider their families when you had them removed from flights? Morrison couldn't answer. Marcus pulled up another document. Southwest Airlines Crisis Management Protocol. Stock price. Protection. He read aloud. When facing potential discrimination lawsuits exceeding $100 million, 0 cents, immediately terminate all involved personnel to demonstrate corporate commitment to equality. Jessica's voice cracked. You're firing us? I'm not firing anyone, Marcus said coldly. The board of directors will vote on your termination at an emergency meeting in 90 minutes. I'll be recommending immediate dismissal, with cause, which means no severance, no benefits, no references. The words hit like physical blows. Jessica doubled over, hyperventilating. Morrison grabbed a seat back for support. But, Marcus continued, there is one possibility for mitigation. Both crew members looked up desperately. Full public confession, live television interview, complete acknowledgement of bias and discrimination, commitment to become advocates for civil rights training in the airline industry. You want us to humiliate ourselves on national TV? Morrison asked. You humiliated me in front of 150,000 people, Marcus replied. Turnabout is fair play. Emma's viewer count had reached 150,000. Major news outlets were now broadcasting her stream directly. Southwest discrimination was trending globally. Marcus's tablet chimed with an incoming video call. He accepted it, angling the screen so the cabin could see. Marcus, it's Robert Jordan. The CEO of Southwest Airlines appeared on screen, his face grim. We've been monitoring the situation. Legal department is mobilizing. PR crisis team is activated. The FAA is demanding immediate compliance reviews. Robert, meet the crew that just cost us $1 billion in market cap. Jordan's eyes focused on Jessica and Morrison. You two are suspended immediately. Security will escort you off the aircraft upon landing. HR will conduct full investigations. Bob, Marcus said, I want them to have one opportunity to salvage their careers. What kind of opportunity? Public accountability, full media confession, commitment to anti-discrimination advocacy. Jordan considered this. If they refuse, termination with cause, blacklisted from the aviation industry, personal liability for any discrimination lawsuits that name them specifically. Morrison's voice was barely a whisper. Personal liability. Captain, when you violate someone's civil rights while acting outside company policy, you become personally responsible for damages. Ms. Martinez, the same applies to you. Jessica was hyperventilating again. The weight of personal financial ruin was crushing. How much personal liability? Morrison asked. Marcus consulted his tablet. Based on similar cases, approximately $2,300,000, 0 cents each. Plus legal fees. Plus punitive damages if a jury finds willful discrimination. The jury scraped the case pouch. They definitely whisked. Both crew members realized they were facing complete financial destruction. "Sir?" Jessica gasped. "What do you want us to do?" Marcus leaned back in his seat, studying them both. "I want you to choose, easy or hard. Take responsibility publicly and help us fix this problem, or fight us in court and lose everything." The plane began its descent into Phoenix. Through the windows, passengers could see news helicopters following their approach. 30 minutes to landing, Morrison announced automatically. 30 minutes to decide your futures, Marcus corrected. Choose wisely. The most expensive 30 minutes of Southwest Airlines history were about to end. Flight 2847 touched down with a thud that seemed to echo through Jessica's soul. Through the small window, she could see her future waiting. News vans, federal investigators, and the end of everything she'd built over 8 years. "Final decision time," Marcus said, not looking up from his tablet. "CNN is requesting live interviews. So is 60 Minutes. The whole world wants to hear your story." Jessica's voice cracked. "What if I can't do it? What if I break down on camera?" For the first time since this nightmare began, Marcus's expression softened slightly. "Ms. Martinez, do you have children?" "A daughter. She's 7. What do you want her to learn from this moment?" Jessica wiped her eyes. That people can change. That mistakes don't have to define you forever. Then that's what you tell the cameras. Morrison shut down the aircraft's engines with hands that shook like autumn leaves. "Sir, I need you to know something. This wasn't the first time. I've done this before, made assumptions about passengers based on how they looked. I never realized." Marcus studied the broken captain. "How many times, Derek?" The use of his first name somehow made it worse. "I don't know, dozens, maybe. I told myself I was following procedure, but you were following bias disguised as procedure." Morrison nodded miserably. "My own son is mixed race." Jesus Christ. What if someone treated him the way I treated you? The confession hit like lightning. Morrison's own child was exactly the kind of person he'd been discriminating against. "Then you have a very personal reason to make this right," Marcus said quietly. The aircraft door opened, and chaos poured in. Federal investigators, Southwest executives, and a small army of lawyers filled the jet bridge. Inspector General Torres approached with grim efficiency. "Mr. Williams, we need immediate statements from all parties. This investigation is now a federal civil rights case." "Inspector, before we begin," Marcus said, "I want to show you something." He pulled up his tablet, displaying a document titled The Morrison-Martinez Protocol, a case study in institutional bias. "I've been developing this training program for 6 months. Today's incident will become mandatory education for every airline employee in America." Torres examined the screen. "You've been planning this. I've been preparing for this. There's a difference." Jessica found her voice. "Sir, can I ask you something personal?" Marcus nodded. "How many times has this happened to you? Really?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Ms. Martinez, I'm a black man who travels 200,000 miles a year on commercial airlines. Take a guess." "Too many times." "Far too many. But today was different. Today, I had the power to do something about it." Emma looked up from her phone, which now showed 180,000 live viewers. "Mr. Williams, people are asking, will this really change anything, or will it just blow over like everything else?" Marcus smiled grimly. "Emma, in the next hour, Southwest Airlines will announce the most comprehensive anti-discrimination program in aviation history. $5 million investment, mandatory body cameras, third-party auditing, Zero tolerance with immediate termination. Ah. He turned to Jessica and Morrison. And our first two case studies will be sitting right here. Case studies? Morrison asked. You two will spend the next year traveling to every Southwest hub, telling your story, showing employees exactly how bias works, how assumptions become actions, how good people can do terrible things without realizing it. Jessica's tears had stopped. Something like hope flickered in her eyes. You're giving us a chance to fix this? I'm giving you a chance to earn redemption. But it won't be easy. You'll relive this humiliation hundreds of times. You'll face angry audiences. Some people will never forgive you. But our daughter will see us trying to make it right, Morrison said quietly. Marcus stood as passengers began deplaning. Ladies and gentlemen, you've witnessed something unprecedented today. A live case study in how discrimination happens and how it can be stopped. He paused at the cabin door. In 12 months, Southwest Airlines will be the safest airline in America for every passenger, regardless of race, religion, or background. Not because we're perfect, but because we're finally honest about our imperfections. Outside, protesters chanted while news cameras rolled. This wasn't just a Southwest story anymore. It was a national conversation about bias, power, and the possibility of change. Jessica took a deep breath and walked toward the cameras. Her career was over, but maybe her real work was just beginning. Morrison followed, thinking about his mixed-race son and the world he wanted to leave him. Marcus Williams stepped into the Phoenix heat, carrying the weight of systemic change on his shoulders. The flight was over. The transformation had just begun. 3 months later, the Morrison-Martinez protocol would be implemented by every major airline in America. Sometimes justice arrives 30,000 feet in the air. Marcus Williams sat in his home office at 2 a.m., scrolling through messages that still arrived daily 6 months after Flight 2847. Tonight's email made him pause. Mr. Williams, my name is Sarah Thompson. I'm white, 34, from Ohio. Last week, I was on a United flight when I saw them treating a Latino family exactly like Southwest treated you. But this time was different. I remembered your story. I started recording. I spoke up. The family kept their seats. Thank you for showing me how to be brave. Marcus smiled, forwarding the email to Emma Morgan, who now ran Southwest's Dignity Documentation Project. These stories arrived every day. Passengers finding courage, employees speaking up, systemic change spreading like wildfire. His phone buzzed. A text from Jessica Martinez, now traveling to her 200th airport presentation. Detroit training tomorrow. 500 new hires. Still nervous every time, but their faces when they get it, worth everything. Another message from Derek Morrison. My son asked to come to my next presentation. He wants to help. Said he's proud his dad learned to be better. Marcus leaned back in his chair. The real victory wasn't the $2,300,000,000, 0 cents, in prevented lawsuits or the 89% drop in discrimination complaints. It was Sarah Thompson finding her voice. It was Morrison's son feeling proud instead of ashamed. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Williams? His assistant's voice. 60 Minutes is on line 1. They want to do a follow-up story. Tell them I'm not available, Marcus replied. But connect them with Emma Morgan. Her story is the one that matters now. He walked to his window, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. Somewhere out there, flights were taking off every minute. Passengers were being treated with dignity because strangers had witnessed injustice and decided to act. His computer chimed with a new video upload, Emma's latest live stream. Not from an airplane this time, but from a coffee shop in Seattle, where she documented a manager discriminating against a transgender customer. The video already had 100,000 views and was climbing. Marcus opened his laptop and began typing. 6 months ago, I sat in seat 2A and changed my life. But I didn't change the world. You did. Every time you share Emma's original video, discrimination gets a little harder to hide. Every time you speak up when you see bias, justice gets a little stronger. Every time you choose courage over comfort, someone like Sarah Thompson finds their voice. These real-life stories matter because they become your stories. Black stories that inspire white allies. Touching stories that move people to action. Life stories that prove ordinary people can create extraordinary change. Today, right now, someone is being discriminated against. Someone is staying quiet. Someone is looking the other way. Don't be that someone. Record the truth. Share the evidence. Speak for the silenced. Because change doesn't happen in boardrooms. It happens when you decide that enough is enough. What injustice will you document today? Share your stories below. Tag 3 people who need to see this. Subscribe if you believe dignity isn't negotiable. The next flight, 2847, is waiting for its Emma Morgan. Will that be you? Marcus hit publish and watched the views climb. 1,000, 5,000, 15,000. Somewhere, another ordinary person was about to find extraordinary courage. The revolution would be live-streamed.